College is a wild ride for young adults, and their mental health often suffers. This podcast addresses the inner battles many college students struggle with. You're listening to Normalize It Forward, where we have raw, unfiltered conversations about young people's biggest mental health problems, how to handle them, and how to achieve a more resilient mind. Time to get rid of those heavy burdens and focus more on self-love and care. Here is your host, Mark Lehman.
Welcome to Normalize It Forward. My name is Mark Lehman, and we are here today to talk about mental health and wellness. I'm super excited to welcome Brittany Snitzer. Welcome, Brittany,
Hi, how are you?
The show. Brittany is a talented and innovative professional in the makeup industry, known for her expertise in creating flawless, trend-setting looks with a passion for enhancing natural beauty and meticulous eye for detail. Brittany has built a reputation as a go-to artist for a wide range of clients, from individuals to high-profile events and photo shoots. Her ability to adapt to diverse styles and stay ahead of industry trends sets her apart, making her a sought-after name in the beauty world. Brittany, thank you so much for making the time to join us. Welcome.
You for having me, Mark. I'm so excited to be here and discuss all topics related to mental health.
Fantastic, fantastic. Well, let me first ask. So I love the name Gal on the Go. Maybe can we jump into that and just tell us a little bit about what that is?
So basically, I started my business in 2015. I was actually injured and not in the best mental place when I started my business because I was divorcing. Okay. And I was working in a salon because I'm also a hairdresser, and I couldn't work because I had a back injury. So already starting my business in such a low point, I needed to find something to do where my back and my mental health would still be thriving. So basically, during my divorce, my clients started looking for me on social media, the beauty of social media. So one day a client was like, "Hey, I have something. Would you mind coming over to do my hair?" And I'm like, "Okay, let me go try." I was on a 6-month bed rest with a herniated disc in L4, 5, 6. So I was also, medicated and really not in a good place. And luckily, thankfully, my clients kept calling me, and one tells one, and an entire business was built just on word of mouth. And so my mental health started to recuperate. My back started to feel better. And I was looking for a name that kind of was like catchy and cute. And I didn't want to be just like Girl on the Go. And I have like a little bit more pizzazz. So I was like, let me just be Gal on the Go. And
I love it.
Years later, I'm still Gal on the Go.
Gal on the Go. What a cool story. First of all, how's your back these days?
It's really good. Thank you.
Okay, good.
I always try to be mindful of my injuries and everything that comes with that. So I try to do a lot of yoga and Pilates and really just try to stay on my game.
Good for you. So as you might guess, I don't know a ton about the beauty industry. But as we talked about earlier today, I do treat a lot of individuals with eating disorders. And
yes.
I'm really wanting to chat with you a little bit about that because I think, our listeners in many cases are young adults and sometimes really young. And they're on social media and they're exposed to so much. I guess I wanted to just bring the topic up and ask your thoughts on that associated with wellness.
So I did share with you before that I do struggle with an eating disorder. At 12 years old, 12 or 13, I was diagnosed with bulimia, anorexia, and I was hospitalized that same year at the Children's Hospital in Montreal. I stand proudly in saying that I'm in recovery and I'll continue to stay in recovery. But it's lifelong, and it's every day is a struggle because, as we know, dealing with anorexia or bulimia or any sort of eating disorder, it plays a big part in your mind.
Absolutely.
And your mind is always kind of focusing on, or micro-focusing, as we say in therapy, about things that maybe don't even exist, right? So anorexia and bulimia really have touched my life a lot because it's really dictated a lot of why I'm in the beauty industry, actually. It's very ironic because I chose a field that like makes others feel good.
Mm-hmm.
So I take a lot of pride in that. And my clients know that as well. And the people I speak to as well, that like life as a woman, as a woman in general, like is difficult. And then when you have a bit of anxiety and then, you want to be this person in your head and it doesn't always work like that. It becomes very challenging.
Mm-hmm.
So even as a young girl, I was always like an achiever and I always wanted to like succeed the best and be the best and and then, it plays a lot in your head.
Absolutely.
So I think that eating disorders and the beauty industry have a lot in common.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because when you go online and when you go into social media, that's what young girls are seeing, right? Like either the very thin or the very tall or the more voluptuous. Like there's so many things in your face on YouTube, on Instagram, on TikTok about women's beauty, and young girls gravitate towards that, and even my young clients, I try to make sure to just talk about it with them and say, no matter what size you are, no matter what color you are, no matter how you're feeling that day, like, you have to stay focused on the what you have in front of you and not what you want to go out and do to yourself or play in your mind what you're not good at or good for or not enough, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
The talk about not enough is a lot, I find.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that part is a mindset too.
Yeah, it's a mindset.
Wanting what you don't have. And then when you do have it, you want something.
You're still not happy.
Yeah. Right.
That's a lot. I find for women, even women, I'm 35. So like I'm at like a, kind of like a pinnacle point. And even, women my age who are successful, they, and they're beautiful and they can't seem to see that. And they've done work and, this, that, and the other, and they're still not happy with themselves. So I think as a therapist and being in recovery, we talk a lot about like loving ourselves, but like really loving yourself. And what does that really look like?
I'm really glad you brought that up because so many of our listeners, I think you're speaking to, are young and many of
Really
them
young.
And so let's talk about that. What does that mean to really love yourself? What does that look like to you?
Well, I think that's the first thing is to accept who you are. Like the acceptance of maybe I'm never going to be good enough for this person or this parent or that grandparent or that cousin or whatever the case is. But like, I'm good for Britt.
Right.
And I'm doing good just for Britt. Like, what does that mean for Britt? It means if I wake up and I'm having a bad day, how can I get out of my head to feel better? Or what do I need to do may that be meditate, may that be work out, may that be eat a healthy meal, may that mean talk to my therapist or my friends, take a walk, be with my dog. All those things, like it's just self-acceptance and know that, okay, I didn't do X, Y, and Z today, but that doesn't mean I'm like a bad person.
Right.
Or, I didn't post enough today, or I got into a fight with my boyfriend, but that doesn't mean I don't love myself.
I think asking that basic question, when you talk about acceptance, it's so simple, but so overlooked,
So overlooked.
Asking that basic question, I ask it all the time in therapy. Are you happy?
But what does happiness really mean?
Good question. Yeah, it's a good question.
That's a lot of the time. Like I go back and forth, like, what is it going to do to make me happy? Mm-hmm. Is it going to be buying a bag or helping somebody when they're feeling like shit?
Yeah.
Like, what does that really equate to? And a lot of people, I think, in my industry struggle with, we could have everything in the world, like collaboration deals, nice makeup, pretty face, nice outings. But does that really mean you're happy?
I would argue no. I would argue
right.
that. I would argue no. I think that a lot of individuals that seemingly have all of the material things,
right,
oftentimes aren't happy.
Right. Most of the time, I meet and talk to people and my clients and people I come in contact with in the media, just because you're rich and famous and this and that and have Botox and filler and doesn't necessarily mean you're okay inside.
Right. Right.
So it's a bigger conversation, right?
Yeah. It brings up the next thought of like, how do you get okay inside, right? Like, what are some of the things, you and I have lived many more years than teenage kids, and they're just sort of figuring out how to be a young adult.
Yeah.
We've tripped, we've fallen, we've done things that have allowed us to figure that part out. So let me ask you the question, like when you think about what are some of the things you've done over the years that have made you, Brittany, a happier person?
I think getting in touch with like my inner child and like what about that I wasn't happy with or didn't fulfill or suffice my needs of not being good enough, or I grew up with privilege. I didn't grow up like, my parents were very accommodating to, I went to private school and we lived in a nice home and all this and all that, but sometimes it goes beyond all those things. So you remove the material things and then you kind of ask yourself what was lacking or what didn't I have, or besides materialistics, right?
Right.
So for me, it was just a lot of going really deep, and I've been in a recovery program a few times already now, and I've really just had to work out why I choose the certain people in my life or why I want to be like this person when I really don't want to be like this person, and why am I getting heavily influenced by people that don't live in my shoes.
Right. That's a great question. Yeah. Great point. Great question. I think it happens all the time. And, if you think about how these devices sort of train us, we're constantly barraged with all of these images. And I think for women in particular, it feels to me like when I look at Instagram or when I look at Facebook, the images women are bombarded with, is really kind of an example of what you're talking about, which is, they're seeking something that they'll never get to. You know what I mean? So they can never really truly feel good about who they are because they're always running towards something.
Yeah, but what are you really running towards? What is the goal?
Right. Good question. I think that when I think about happiness, there's certain things that bring me happiness. I'm sure there's certain things that bring you happiness. One of those things is just feeling mentally well.
Yeah. These days, yes, waking up and not feeling in the pit of my stomach anxiety.
Right.
Waking up and just breathing in the good air. Waking up and just hugging my cute little dog and knowing that like I'm loved. Right. Those are things that, and I'm able to say like, I love myself and loving people around me openly without conditions.
Huge. And I think a lot goes into that. And I want to break that down a bit because I think it's important for young people to understand this, that, you don't get to a mentally positive or well place without a lot of work. A
lot of work,
and the work sometimes is therapy. The work is sometimes joining a yoga class or a meditation class. But really the bottom line is making some time for yourself to take care of yourself. And I find so many people, absolutely. I find so many people don't. So many people.
Right. I think it's easy to like distract yourself with like the noise. May it be substance, may it be a nightlife, may it be, people that don't really want the best for you, really. So if you surround yourself with things that like can cloud your image of like mental clarity, then you're going to always stay stuck, right? So you have to really ask yourself, what do I need to feel mentally clear, right? For me, that's staying away from substance. For me, that's staying away from, not going to bed past midnight. For me, that looks like eating healthy. For me, that looks like taking nature walks. For me, that looks like talking to my friends that are really, really there for you. And my clients and giving back to the community.
Yeah. I mean, that's huge as well. You touched on a few things, but I want to just pick up on one in particular. You mentioned having healthy people around you.
Very
And
important.
I think it's huge. I mean, I find young people a lot of times will convince themselves the people that are around them are healthy and love them and care about them.
Well, we have our rose-colored goggles on a lot, right? So we romanticize, and I've done it many times. You romanticize and fantasize about the people that you're dating or the people that are around you that like, yeah, okay, whatever, or this comment this, but like, no, no, no. Like, we really have to set in check and boundaries about the people that really want the best for you. And that may not be a ton of people. It might be just one, right?
That's a
And
huge
you like eliminate a lot of the negative distractions and like hyper focus on like what is going to keep your peace in your brain. That's when like it's going to click. And that's when it clicked for me, to be honest, is that who's really like feeding my soul and who's really draining my soul.
Yeah. 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 And look, we all have things that pop up in life. And, you know, cause I work with so many college kids, unfortunately, sometimes things pop up like a death in the family or someone
Of
gets
course,
sick.
absolutely.
They take a little bit of time away from school. And I'm always curious when they get back, who visits them first, you know, because it's usually their true friends, the ones that really care about them. Brittany's gone for 2, 3, 4 days or a week. And it's like, someone's texting you. Someone cares that you're not there, you know,
Right.
as opposed to the other kids that you think are your friends that didn't even notice you were gone, you know?
You couldn't have said it better. I travel for work, you know, around the world lately. And this past year too, I've done a lot of traveling, and it's really interesting to see really who's checking up on me or and who really like is in my corner to know like, did you arrive? Are you okay? Like, did you eat today? Like
Right.
things like this. So you're saying something that really resonates well with me, because that's really a good indicator of like who really, really
Cares.
wants the best for you.
Yeah.
The very best for you.
Yeah.
And sometimes, like, as hard as it is, you have to just set your boundaries and remove yourself sometimes in silence. It doesn't always have to be loud and proud, but it just in silence, you could just back away from people that you feel at the pit of your stomach that are not, don't have the right intention.
That's a good way of saying it. Don't have the right intention. I like that.
You know, some people want to be around for the wrong reasons.
Yep. Absolutely.
And so that leaves you with a bit of like a black cloud, and you'll know, you'll feel it when you're not in the right space.
Brittany, let's talk a little bit about social media, because social media it's such a fascinating topic. I think that, you know, I've been to so many conferences where they talk about it as evil and blame all of, you know, mental health in the community on social media.
I actually think it's a blessing.
There's clearly an up and a downside, right? Like there is. And I guess I want to talk to you about both. Like, how do you see that I mean, in your industry, I would imagine it plays a role.
Well, to be honest with you, social media, I've been very successful on it. And this is how I produce content, and people can see my work, and I can connect with other artists. And I've gotten a lot of collaboration deals out of social media. So I feel that if you portray the right image, and you don't have to share your whole life, you share what you want to share, and I'll be judged for that, and, you know, so on and so forth. But like at the end of the day, like, you control what's here. You can control that. It's a control mechanism, just like anything else. So if you're putting out positive image, you're going to get back positive image. I haven't had many negative, I mean, you know, people say comments, that's normal, but the majority of this has been positive.
Good.
So I guess it depends on how you're using your media.
Yep.
Are you using it in a positive business form? Or are you just dilly-dallying and kind of just creating things in your head? I've spoken to many people, many women, and they have had to close their Instagrams for anxiety, where like they just can't watch a makeup video or a girl in a bathing suit or something about Kim Kardashian or blah, blah, you know, so on and so forth. But in my experience, it's been positive.
Good. Yeah, I think that's well said.
But you also have to understand how to market, and you also have to understand Instagram's a business.
Oh yeah.
right? So as a business owner, you have to think of it as a business.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You
Yep.
can't, it's not that serious.
Right. I like what you said too about boundaries. I mean, not sharing your entire world, I think, is important. I think you and I both use it very similarly in terms of our
Yeah.
business, and it's a great way to reach, lots and lots of
Lots of
individuals you
people.
wouldn't normally be
Yeah.
able to reach. Right. For young people, it can be really anxiety provoking, and
Yes.
I watch young kids regularly go through this, especially with like colleges and so forth, and kids are
Mhm.
making
Bullying, being bullied a lot online,
right, sure. There's all sorts of stuff.
body shaming, right? Yeah.
I want to highlight something you said earlier, and I think it's really important and worth repeating, and that is we have control over that.
You do.
So, if a young person is viewing social media a lot, which many do, you don't have to.
Excessively.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you don't have to. You can turn your phone off. You can, put some limits on it. You can,
Hmm.
set some boundaries. You can take a break from it,
Hmm.
which is mentally really healthy to do. There's lots of things,
Absolutely.
for it. So it's something I think it's sort of like it reminds me of a swimming pool. It can be a lot of fun, but we have to respect it can also be hazardous, right?
Very.
And just be mindful of it.
It's also easy to get like caught up, right? You're scrolling, you're on your
Oh yeah.
Explorer page, or it's like almost like a rabbit hole. So
Yep.
like I try as much as I can to do my content, to post it out there, to to look at a few things, but you can also choose who you follow. You
Absolutely.
don't have to be public like me or you. You could choose who you follow. You can choose your content. You can also put barriers on your like everything is in moderation.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
it's at your discretion.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Brittany, let me ask you this kind of a big question, but, sounds like like many of us went through your ups and your downs as a young person.
Mhm.
And I guess, if you had an opportunity to speak to 13 or
Younger self.
Brittany, right?
Yeah.
What kind of advice would you throw?
Oh wow. So much.
Yeah.
My younger self, I would say to myself, it's not my fault. And I would say to myself, it's not my fault, and you're doing the best you can do for you.
I love that. I love that.
And to keep shining and to continue to thrive.
I mean, I would say to you, one of the hardest parts of my job is, the depressive rates and the anxiety rates are through the roof. And
Yeah,
unfortunately, the suicide rates are as well.
I know.
And, every once in a while, and unfortunately, it's becoming, more frequent, I will hear a story. And it's a story of someone who took their life. And I always think the same thing. I mean, horrible tragedy, but their life is just beginning.
I know.
There's so much more that's going to happen for them. And I love what you said, for young people listening, please hear those words. You're doing
You're
the
not
best.
alone.
You're
Yeah.
not alone. There's plenty of people out there that are willing to listen and help and assist.
Mhm.
And guess what? If you hold your breath, things are going to shift and change every 10 minutes.
Yeah.
They just do. And, so 12 years old and 13 years old and 15 years old and 18 years old, like all different age brackets, right?
So a few years ago, I have this tattoo on my wrist. I don't know if you can see it.
Oh, yeah. Look at that. Look at it. Yep.
So
Yep.
it's actually the semicolon.
Yeah, of course. Hmm.
A few years ago, I was not in a good place, and my mental health was really, really poorly. And I admitted myself to the hospital,
Hmm.
and I was very, very close to not making it.
Mm.
So I think it's really important to like for everyone to realize is that you don't need to be young, you don't need to be old, but you also have to realize that if you are having a mental health crisis, there are places and people
Yeah.
that you can go to, and they don't have to be your family, because most of the time your family doesn't know what to do and can't help themselves either. So I just want to like say that you're never alone in the world. So
Really appreciate you sharing that. I really do. And, I think I always tell young people, when you find yourself in a lonely position, you got to find somebody. You got to reach out. You got to,
Even
'cause
if that means checking yourself in.
somewhere, anywhere, but it's being by yourself. That's the most destructive place to be when you're feeling that way.
Yeah,
So I'm happy you did that. I'm happy
me
you're here
too.
to
So
talk.
happy.
And look, to me, as they say, life is a journey, right? Like, our journeys are continuing, and
Always.
young people's journeys are just beginning in many ways, right? And so, I always feel honored when someone allows me into their world for just a moment to hear about their journey, and I know that if I run into that person 2, 3, 4 years later, there's twists, there's turns, there's, that's part of life, right?
Mm-hmm.
But as you and I said earlier, it's right now, it's a tough time for young people, for adults, and it puts a lot of pressure on us to take care of ourselves better right
Mm-hmm.
now, because we got to get through this, because we want to get to the good stuff, and
Life is hard.
yeah,
Life is hard. It
can
is
be
not
challenging,
easy
can
for
be challenging.
everybody.
Yeah.
Everyone, I see and talk to many people a day because of my profession. So you're a therapist and I'm kind of a therapist too in my own right, like without the degree. But, when someone's sitting in your chair and they're trusting you to make them and feel good and they get to talking to you, right? So I have clients that are high profile and no profile, and they say the same things to me. The
See,
same exact things.
that's so important, because I feel like when I talk to kids and they talk about the Kim Kardashians of the world or other famous
Mhm.
people, there's this illusion that they're not human beings,
Oh, they're human.
and their
We're all
lives
human.
and their lives are so vastly different. Sure, maybe there's more
Their
money,
lives are hard,
but
harder
yeah.
than we think.
But I always say to people, whenever I've worked with, a celebrity or famous individual, it's
Mhm.
it's always the same. Everybody
Always
is a
the same.
human
We're
being.
humans,
We're all susceptible.
all of us.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
think they have an even harder time. I work in the media as well, and you know, they have it even. They have to have thick skin because they're being spoken about. They're being ripped apart.
All the
Their
time.
relationships are online. Their lives are online. If they're fat, if they're skinny, if they're green, if they're purple, like it's out there, and they've put themselves out there. So their mental health rates. I mean, if we look at some of the celebrities that have even passed, like death, like
Mhm.
look how much struggle they've been through and nobody wanted to help them, or they
Yeah.
couldn't get the help they needed, and they have all the
Right.
resources in
The
the
resources.
world.
That's right. That's right. Yeah, no, I think it's really important. And we do hear about that. We hear about that in the public
All the
eye,
time.
so all the more reason, I think, that concept of, really one of the biggest reasons I created this podcast is, let's talk about mental health. Let's normalize the conversation. Let's have the conversation. Let's ask the right questions. Let's be there for others if we can. Let's
Yeah,
be kind. Let's realize that sometimes when people appear like they're not struggling, they are,
they are.
you know?
And it's funny you say that because sometimes, like, I'm always pretty authentic and like I explain who I am, and clients and my friends and people online know that like I have struggles, and I work with I Love Tyler Madison and brands, and I try to do as much as I can outreach because you really don't know what's happening in someone's home and in someone's head.
That's right.
And you could look
Mhm.
perfect, filtered, perfect, hair done, makeup on, but you don't really know what's happening. You don't
Yeah.
know what is going on in someone's brain.
Yeah. It's
It's an
the,
appearance.
the mask they're wearing, and so,
Yeah, we all wear one. All of us.
yeah. So keeping that in mind and realizing, hey, it's a choice. We can be kind to other people. We can, recognize that maybe people are going through it more than we know. And we can always lend a hand if possible, and certainly lend an ear, listen to people if we need to. So I have to say, I mean, use the word authentic. You're super authentic. I really appreciate your ability to just put yourself out there, talk about hard things.
Appreciate that.
And I do think it'll resonate with my listeners, because guess what? You know what? They're dealing with stuff too. And,
Yeah.
I just feel like when we kind of give that message of, hey, we're all dealing with stuff, it doesn't push people off into that stigma corner, right? So it's like, hey, it's okay to be dealing with stuff, and
Okay.
you just got to be dealing with it. You got to be working on it.
You have to do the work.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's the hardest part. Is it's easy to talk about it, and it's easy to like, keep talking about it. But then like at a certain point, you have to be like, enough is enough. Enough is enough. I want to feel good now. I want to feel strong now. I want to feel mentally okay. So what does that mean? What do I need to do to just wake up in the morning and not feel like you're going to crawl in a ball?
Yeah.
And cry or whatever.
And that's where therapy comes in. You get a good therapist, and they're going to direct you. They're going to tell you. They're going to warn you. They're going to tell you this can be a little bit of work.
A lot of work.
But guess what?
You have to dig deep.
Yeah. But there's
goes back long time.
Yeah. Yeah. For many of us. For many.
Yeah. Including myself.
Yeah. So Brittany, let me ask you this, because again, appreciate your time today, and part of Normalize It Forward is I want the conversation to continue. So I will often ask my guests to nominate a friend, a coworker, or a relative. I'll put you on the spot if you have one. But I'm curious, any thoughts in terms of somebody you know who might be somebody good for me to interview coming up?
Yes, I do actually. She's a really good friend of mine. She's a client. She's also a content creator and actress. Her name is Esther Brzezinski.
Excellent.
And I think she would be really, really good for your podcast as well. She'll give a different perspective as well to your listeners.
I really appreciate it. I'll get her info from you offline, and we'll definitely reach out and get Esther on the show sometime soon. But thank you so much for taking. I know you're super
having
busy.
me. Thank you for taking the time.
I really appreciate you being here. Really, really do. And listen, have a wonderful day. Enjoy upcoming holidays, and we'll talk at some point. Take care.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. You're very welcome. You take care.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
That's all for this episode of Normalize It Forward. May this conversation serve as a reminder that you are never alone in facing your mental health struggles. There are always people who can help. To dive even deeper into our journey of normalizing one of the biggest issues young people face, check out more episodes of the show at youareheard.com. It's UAREHEARD.com. Continue gaining access to the right tools, the best resources, and the most insightful advice to achieve positivity, mindfulness, and genuine happiness.